Hello, friends. I hope you are thriving in your Lenten journey. Thank you for joining in this digital worship space today. You're going to meet one of my new friends, a really energetic, wonderful pastor. Her name is Sam Ledoux, and she is the intern pastor at Faith Lutheran in Santa Rosa. I pray that you will be blessed by her message. Let us take a deep breath and join in a spirit of worship. A reading from the Gospel according to St. Luke, the 15th chapter. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes has come home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'"
So, for those who aren't familiar, I started out a Roman Catholic and spent many years working in a Roman Catholic space. And in that space, there's a long, strong current. And you are told as a music director, a liturgy director, and a priest, do not change anything for the first 3 years you are in a parish. Change nothing, zero. And so the sort of myth that has gone with that is this idea that people cannot handle change. And then I stepped over into Lutheran land, and I heard, "Oh, people don't like change, don't change anything." I was breaking up with the Catholic Church. I wasn't enjoying my change either at the time, so I kind of went with it. But as I walked a little further along, I noticed some cracks in that idea. And I started to wonder, is it that people don't like change? Or is it that people just don't like the change that requires a little more out of them? Because change is required for survival. We need to grow up from infancy. Our parents will not always be there to keep us alive, right? There's plenty of other changes I can also think of that are vital for survival, but it turns out we have limited time, so I won't go down that rabbit hole. But the main point is that change is vital. And as we listen through all of the texts this weekend, change is vital in every one of them. In Joshua, they crossed into the promised land. That in and of itself is a big change. They've been wandering around in a desert for 40 plus years. They've been eating manna and quail, and now all of a sudden they're eating produce grown from the land. And on top of all of that, the shame and the weight of having been enslaved has been rolled away. How amazing that must have felt to have a sense of home, and to have the sense that you can let go of where you had been. Big change. Change coming for generations. And in the psalm writer is seeking forgiveness, a change from sadness and perhaps even despair to happiness upon the receipt of that forgiveness. And then in 2 Corinthians, we're just on the other side of change. The people in Corinth are now living into being a new creation. Paul says everything old has passed away. These people have reconciled themselves to Christ. But then we get a record scratch, and we get this parable. This story from Jesus. And it doesn't seem like anybody's changing in the story. Everybody seems kind of consistent in their character. The father, who is jovial and pretty willing to just give to his son, and there's so many arguments out there about whether what his son was asking for was sinful, mean, rude, you name it. At the end of the day, youngest son was kind of being a little irresponsible, and it seems like father's a bit of an enabler. Okay, cool. Sometimes we do that. All right. Youngest son, kind of chaotic, obviously had some plans, wanted to go have a good time, as often does so. Good time ends, and what does he do? He comes back to where there's a better time. Not a big change. Not a big change. And then we have the eldest son. How many people here are eldest siblings? I'm an eldest sibling. Yeah, see? How many of us are like, oh yeah, I know why that guy's mad. Okay, he has the classic eldest sibling syndrome. He's super responsible. He's always there. He always does the thing. And now he shows up and he's had enough. So where is the vital change that happens in this story? I think Jesus is, in this space, presenting us with the potential for change. And we are left to imagine and sort out those details for ourselves. If you picture the story for a minute, at the very ending, we're left with 2 people standing outside of the party, outside of the action, on the margins, in the dark. They're frustrated and they're disagreeing with one another. The son is demanding that dad change his behavior and pay attention to the damage he's doing. And the father says, look, son, let go of the oldest sibling gig and just come on in and have a good time. 2 demands for change. And that spotlight really sits on that final moment. There is no resolution. The space where the parent and the child are disagreeing while this party is raging inside. And they continue standing in the margins, and that's how the story ends. Choices need to be made here. Father could choose to see what his eldest son sees, and father could choose to say, okay, I understand how my behavior is generating a problem between my 2 sons, and I need to change. Son, eldest son, could say, okay, I see what my dad sees, unconditional love, doesn't make me comfortable, but maybe I need to change my heart. Maybe I need to let go of the role of being the eldest sibling. Did you know that this Sunday is Laetare Sunday? It's a fancy church word for joy. And in theory, this story is a moment for joy and reprieve from Lent. A little break in the Lenten journey of about 6 weeks, we might say. And it's kind of odd that at this midway point, we receive this gospel that at the end quite literally leaves us in the dark with these 2 guys, once again, at odds with each other, but sitting in the midst of that invitation for change. And I'm reminded a bit of John the Baptist. You remember at the beginning of our liturgical year in Advent, we heard about John the Baptist, and what was he calling for? He was calling for hearts and minds to change, right? He was saying that the kingdom of heaven is near. And so I come back to the story and I wonder, is the story ultimately focused on the moment when the kingdom of heaven is very near and we can make a choice? And we are left to think about, what does it feel like when that moment for the kingdom of heaven might be very near? Maybe it doesn't feel very good when the moment of the kingdom of the heaven is very near. It's a moment when we can make a change. We could step a little further away from sin, sin being moving ourselves away from God or breaking relationships, and move closer to the freedom and the justice and the equity of the kingdom of heaven, those things that God envisions for all of us. It's a moment when we also could choose to remain very comfortably where we're at, even though we're uncomfortable. Change is not only new life. The bummer is, it's also death. And a real and sincere change really does require that old ways pass away. And I don't know, has anybody here tried to change a habit? Yeah. Okay, there we go. It's a little tough, isn't it? It's not easy. Jesus already knows that we're imperfect, okay? And God already provides unceasing mercy. It's the source and reason that we know that we can freely try to be better, and we can freely try to do better for our friends and our family and our neighbors. We can freely change over and over and over again into one new life after another new life. Every one of them will be still a little imperfect, but the beauty is that's why the mercy is there. It frees us to keep changing and keep going. So the invitation has been issued, and here we are on this Rejoice Sunday, standing in the dark at the edge of the resurrection party, otherwise known as Easter. That's about 2.5 weeks away or so, okay? So we're just sort of standing in the dark, and we're peering into the party. And the invitation has been issued. We can change, or we can stay the same. So I'm left wondering, what changes will this family, not just the family in the parable, but the family, the church family, make? What will this church allow to pass away so that we can enter a new life together? A new life that is maybe just a little bit closer to what God envisions for us. My heart will sing on the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn.
Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Amen.